Connecting. Here come our participants coming in. Matt, I thank you so much for being here with us to walk us through this for a second time. I know that you did this tutorial for juniors already, but it was very well attended. And also as we're starting to lend gear out through the hangar, it's great to be able to have this as a recording up on our YouTube channel so that we can make sure everybody knows how to care for their gear. And we're getting so many reshares of these through the YouTube. So I'm very happy with the success of that. Even if people can't make a specific time work, we're getting, 50, 60, 70 shares of the information. So I think that we're providing some fun content for people. But for everybody joining us, Mad-Eye has been with the league since 2011 and is currently helping out with some juniors coaching, but has skated different teams, and you can explain a little bit more about your involvement. But as we go through this skate cleaning tutorial, I'm going to monitor the Q&A. So if anybody has any questions for Mad-Eye, go ahead and throw those in the Q&A for me, and I will feed them to her as needed so that everything makes sense as we go along. And take it away.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, I'm Mad-Eye. And we are going to go through cleaning our skates. These are my kiddos' skates, so they haven't been cleaned in a while. Anyway, so what I'm going to start with for today is showing you guys our bearings, so those can get soaking if you have the acetone. So to go through, to get these little nuts off your skates, let me know if I'm going too fast too. You're gonna need your 1/2 inch, usually it's a 1/2 inch anyway. Some skates can be different, but you go ahead and start taking them all off. I recommend if you have like a little tray or something to put all the little pieces in, that usually helps out a lot.
Mad-Eye, how much does the skate tool like the one you're using cost?
Oh, this is a Powerdyne tool. I think you guys can see it. I think it's about $15, $10 to $15. The reason why I like this one is because it's got the 2 different sizes, and then this usually fits most of your toe stops. So if you see Vicious's toe stops are this kind. Some people have, like on my skates, I have to use the Allen wrench tool. But yeah, this one usually is really good for all-purpose kind of tools. Otherwise, you can use like a regular wrench.
Totally, yeah.
And I have one that will has a little spinny thing, adjustable. So yeah, go ahead and keep taking them off. If you want, you can lay down something because it's gonna start to get dirty. And these are, I could talk about these nuts while everybody's taking theirs off. For mine and Vicious's skates, I like to use, I don't know, this light's kind of bright, the Astro Mitts. These are like a plastic, but they're really lightweight, and they come in lots and lots of cool different colors. I usually recommend, if you are taking your wheels off multiple times a year or switching your wheels out, these, and then also these metal ones that you can get from like a hardware store. These have rubber inside of them, so it makes like a seal, like a Loctite situation going on. And then these ones just have the plastic. So as you use them and take them on and off, that wears down and doesn't hold the lock as well. So that's why it's really good to replace these more if you're moving them around more. If you're keeping them on and they're not coming, like you don't ever change your wheels, then you don't have to change them that much. But you should be cleaning them, your bearings and such. So these are about $4 at like any skate shop really. And then these ones, the metal ones, you can get them at like any hardware store for like 10 cents. They're not bad at all. And I always keep extras too, because you never know when something will fly off. Okay, so the next thing we'll talk about, I'm not going to do all of like both wheels, or sorry, both skates, just for time with everybody. The next thing we're going to talk about is getting the bearings out. So if you have, I have this little bones tool. It's got like a little grabber and a little button that moves these little, gosh, I have no words today. The little pins here push in so you can get behind the bearing, and I'll see if it comes out. It can be tough. So that's something that I like to tell people about these big guys. This is a bearing press and a puller. So it will put your bearings back in nice and snug and take them out. And I got this one. It's an off-brand one because I don't care about brands that much. But it was, I think, $19.99 on Amazon. So not too bad. You can also screw it into a table to give you more leverage. I like to keep mine separate because I take it places. Okay, so once you get your bearings out, you're going to need your safety pin. The safety pin is to get the shields off. So basically, your bearing is made up of, oh, I think it's called the casing. I'll have to get my cheat sheet. But it has the outer casing and the inner casing. And then when it opens up, you have the two shields. So I'll take that off really quick. If I can get close enough to show you guys, the trick with your safety pin is to stick the pointy part of the pin into the metal part of the bearing on the inside. So you poke the metal, so you're not poking the shield and you're not poking, there is a rubber that is around the inner part of the shield and on the outer part to keep it like snug and kind of like watertight. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to stick it, I don't know if you can see, and poke the metal, and then you're going to scrape in and under the shield. So you're not poking, and so it'll start to pop out just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to set the shield aside. These little guys go on the outside and they help you keep the dirt out. So if I can show this, inside your bearing, you have a retainer that holds the bearing balls. So do not, whatever you do, do not take that retainer out. If you take that out, the balls will fly everywhere. And if you can't find them, you don't have a bearing. So most of your bearings will have an outer shield and an inside shield. Some people have metal ones that don't come out. And some people have a metal on one side and the kind of plastic coating on the outside part. So if you have ones that don't totally come apart, it's okay. So for Vicious's, she has the two shelves. Wow. And then we have her bearing, which now is open. Lots of people ask me if you can use a bearing if it's open, and you can. Your bearing is not broken, it will still move. The only issue is that it'll get dirty. Stuff will get stuck in it, stuff like that. So don't lose your shields. another thing about your shields is these you want to set aside. You're not going to put these in acetone. The same with your nuts from your wheels. So, or that are holding your wheels on. The reason why is because the acetone or other chemicals that you can use can eat away at that rubber and it just won't stick in. And the same with these. So yeah, for longevity of your things, don't put them in it. Just your bearings. So like this, you're ready to set this aside. And then I will show you guys with the bearing press puller. That's what we're using it for this one. So I think you guys can see.
Yep.
All right. So with the bearing press puller, I don't really know which one you'd rather call it. But this end over here, it has a little hook on it. There you go. And that hook will sit behind the bearing in here. And then when you pull it, it uses the metal to, oh, well, if I hold it on. If I hook it correctly, and it'll come out really, really easily. These, they work, but it can be tough. Like my wheels are really hard to get my bearings out. So these kill my hand. The other way you can get your bearings out, which is not totally recommended, but if you're in a pinch, you can do it. And I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna show you guys because I don't wanna mess up our equipment. But anyway, you can use the axle on the skate to kind of get under there and wedge it out. The reasons I don't like to use it is it can mess up your bearings. You can damage the way that it's put together, the casings, and you can damage the retainer. You can also damage the, I can't think now. What is this called?
The axle.
Well, yeah, what is it? No, it's the threads. Thank you. The thread on your axle. I was asking my husband, I'm like, what is it? But yeah, you don't want to mess up those threads because that holds your wheels on when you put on the bolt. Okay, so keep taking all of your bearings apart and shields off. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna talk about cleaning the wheels. As long as is everybody good to move on while I talk about it?
Yeah, I think go ahead.
Okay, cool. So the wheels are really easy to clean. You can either just get like warm water and a washcloth and rub them. I don't recommend using any chemicals. Some people say they use alcohol pads. It can work, but you have to be very careful of what your wheels are made out of because some chemicals can actually mess up the makeup of your wheel. And then you can get like chips taken out of them, or they can get brittle, and that's just not what we want. But anyway, so with cleaning, you can use a warm washcloth. You can add a little bit of like Dawn dish soap to the water, not a ton, but enough to help you clean the dirt and crud off. So if you look in your hub, we get a lot of track dust. If you are skating outside, you're gonna get lots and lots of dirt and all sorts of stuff inside all these little holes and stuff and things. And then also if you use like a bearing cream or really just don't clean them very well. These are kind of new, but like in the inside, I don't know if you guys can see that, there's just kind of like black buildup from the bearings. And then also there's a little bit of like track dust. Her wheels are also pretty clean. But like if you see little things like that, that's just like track dust and gook that we won't mention because no one likes to think about what that really is. But you just scrub it off. This is a dry towel, so that it's working really well. If not, add a little water. You can soak them in that water. Just don't do it with the bearings in it, whatever you do. And those are really easy to clean. Outdoor wheels might be a little harder to clean just because they're dirtier, but for the most part, wheels are pretty easy to clean up. Then as we move on to the boot and trucks, that's kind of the same situation. These are dark Rydell's, so I'm pretty sure this is not real leather. It might be. If anybody knows any, I don't know much about the darts. But anyway, there are some that are made out of real leather. You don't want to use water on them really. So a washcloth that's dry, maybe a tiny bit of water, or a leather cleaner.
Rory says darts are vinyl.
Oh, so then water will work. Thank you. But yeah, you just wipe them down, especially what I really like to do is I go to my dad's house and he has an air compressor, and if they're really dirty, I'll just spray them all down. But yeah, you can wipe all the crud off of them around the bolts. While you are doing that, you want to check these nuts that are holding on your truck to the boot. Sometimes they can come loose. I'll grab my skates. So my skates, well, you might not be able to see it, but they have like a little lock type washer in it that has like little claws that kind of connect together, and then you compress them so it locks. And those I really like because they really don't come loose. These ones can come loose. You can get some of the like seal stuff. I also forgot what that's called. That you put around the threads. It's like a rubbery kind of stuff, and you just go over them. But you don't have to. It's not that big a deal.
Ashley,
but yeah,
you thinks the brand is Loctite.
Oh,
yeah.
Perfect. So you can just wipe away all the dust and all the loveliness. If you're allergic, you can use like microfiber. You can use those little duster thingies to catch it so it's not like coming in your face. These aren't too bad. So it means the hanger hasn't been that dirty, which is nice. Anyway, so moving on. If you find you have like gunk build up on your axles, you can do the same thing. Your axles are metal, so you can use a little bit of the good old acetone. Oh, there we go. To clean it. Sometimes, like I was talking about inside your wheels, how the like bearings can build up, you'll get that along here as well. And it's just nice to give it a little clean. So I will talk about the bearings again if people are ready that are cleaning their bearings. So I have the Phones bearing container, bearing cleaner container. This is, I believe it's again like $10 to $15. It's not that expensive. What I really like about this, as opposed to like a small Tupperware, or you could use like a yogurt container. It's pretty much anything. But the benefits to this bearing cleaner is it's got this bolt attached to the lid, and it comes through and has spacers on it. And what you do is you would put on a bearing and then a spacer and then a bearing and then a spacer. All 8 don't fit in, so I usually do them 4 and 4. But if you wanted to do them all and then stick your extra ones inside of here, that would work too. But anyway, that's the nice part about this. Mainly it's so you can close it and agitate it, spin it around and knock all that dirt out of your bearings. But again, do not put your shields, your little bearing shields, or your bolts, nuts and bolts, and one of the washers are probably fine if you want to clean your washers, because they're metal. And if you don't know what a washer is, I'll show you really quick. If you have the toe stops like Vicious does, then we can talk about, if I can get it off. There we go. So if you have this style stopper, it comes with a washer, the bolt, and your toe stop. The part that I see on most juniors during practice, they'll either lose their toe stop or it'll get loose and funky on them. And that's usually what I spend a lot of time fixing at the beginning of practice. So what I do is I like to teach the kiddos, you can clean this as well just by wiping it down. A lot of times there's oil or like a grease inside of here. I don't normally mess with it, so I also don't replace it. Many people that I've taught before know this, that I'm not a big fan of any kind of creams or grease or lubricant, and some people don't like that because they are fans of it. But like, I don't like to put it in my bearings. I don't like to put it on my toe stops because it attracts dirt. It wants the dirt, and I don't want that. So I don't use it. Anyway, back to the washer. This is what you can put in the acetone to clean it, because it's metal. When you're using it with your toe stops, if you lose this, you cannot lock this toe stop. So many of the kids, their toe stop will fall off and they lose the washer. And I always am like, keep an eye out for the washer, because it locks it. So anyway, to lock it, you need to make sure it's like curved. This is not a flat washer. And the reason being is when you tighten the, okay, so the curved part goes up towards the sky, like a plate or something like that. And you put it on your toe stop. You put the bolt where you want your toe stop to sit. So you say, I want my toe stop to be 2 fingers from the ground, or however you measure how long you want them. Some people like them longer, some people like them shorter, personal preference. But anyway, you find that area on the bolt, and after you have that down, you need to put the washer on top of the bolt there with the curved part again facing up. And then when you put it back onto your skate, it's going to stop at that bolt where you want it to be. Also, if you are one of those people where it bugs you, think you can kind of see how they wear theirs down. At an angle, you wear your toe stops down. If you really hate him, like feeling that angle being crooked while you're skating and stuff, just turn your toe stop and find where you like it, and then you turn the bolt the opposite way to lock it in. And you do it until you can't turn it anymore. And then maybe even tighten it again a little bit more. But that locks it in. So it doesn't fall off during practice or during an outdoor skate. You can hold the toe stop and twist the opposite way just to make sure nothing's moving around. But that way, it's in there. It's not going to move. So back to our bearings. So once you have them either in your Tupperware or in your container, if you have one, you want to let them soak. You can, again, agitate it, shake it up, move it all around so all that dust and everything and other unmentionable things that are in our track dust get out. Okay, so
Matt, you have to be gentle when you agitate the bottle to keep from knocking the retainers out, or is it pretty secure?
No.
Okay.
I'm not gentle with it at all. I actually prefer to shake it really hard, and then I'll even hit it. That's something that I learned developing film, actually. Just because the emulsion when you're developing film works a lot of the same, whereas the dirt that is attached to your bearing can be stuck on there, and just by swishing around the water may not get it off, but that actual hit makes the particles fall. So that being rough is usually better in my book. Unless you're dealing with like putting your bearings back together, things like that, don't be rough. Just because you don't want to bend any of the parts inside. While everyone's doing that, I'm gonna grab, I printed these off when I did them. So this is what a bearing looks like inside. So you have your outer race. Aha, that's what it's called. It's not a case, it's a race. So that's your metal piece that holds it all together. This is your retainer. Some of the kiddos, when we did this class in person, when they were taking their stuff apart, some of their bearing balls were starting to pop out of that retainer. Just push them back in, and they pop back in into place, right into like that space right there. And those are plastic, so don't be too rough with that part. And then obviously you have your ball bearings, and then you have your inner race that sits in the inside, and then your shields. This is a breakdown of your skates. So I could post a link to this if people want it for like reference purposes. But I also got it offline, so it's not hard to find. I did not make these. But it's helpful, especially if you're taking your stuff apart, all of it apart for the first time, to kind of have a guide of how it goes back together if you aren't really sure. So if you have your bearings soaking, we're gonna let them soak while you are cleaning your shields and other things as well. And I'm gonna show you, while you're doing that, how to take apart your trucks. So some trucks have different angles in which the kingpins sit, and the pivot pin, I believe that's what it's called, sits in the truck. So don't mix up your front and your back truck. I am not super familiar with what all trucks are like that. These ones are not. So it doesn't matter which one's on the front or the back. But I just like to keep them separated for my brain to kind of like make things work and stay sane. Oh, I'll backtrack really quick about the toe stops. So my pivot, I think they're, no, Pilot Falcon plates have the, and a bunch of people actually are having these now. This is where you lock your toe stops. So you don't have the washer system. And mine came with this tool, so I didn't have to buy it. Allen wrenches aren't that expensive. You can, I think I have a, like this came from, I stole it from my husband's set. Don't tell him. Anyway, so yeah, you can use that to tighten it. I love it. It's my old skates didn't have that little locky mechanism. And it's cool. I haven't had to mess with them. So yeah, back to the trucks. So how am I doing on time? Okay, we're good. All right, so these ones I'll have to see. So this one is the 9/16 side. We use the 1/2 inch side of this Powerdyne tool for the nuts on the wheels. However, I will say that my new, I got these, well, the whole setup actually, I got in November. So they're pretty new to me. But they have the little, these ones have like a locking bolt. Anyway, they lock and they have a like a clicking system to where, I guess I can see if you guys can see it. You can see the little metal bits kind of up there, and then, well, it's kind of hard to see, but the bolt or the nut, or no, that's a bolt, has it out the same way on the other side. So it's kind of like the other bolts holding my trucks together, that when you tighten them, the two come together like this. And then every time you tighten those ones, they, as they hop up and sit into the next one like that, that makes much sense. They kind of turn like that. It clicks. So what's really nice about that is when you're adjusting your trucks, you can remember when you're putting them back on, how many clicks it takes to get to the setting that you like. Because that can take a lot of like tweaking around with while you're skating to figure out how loose you like your trucks. Oh, what I was saying about that is that this tool doesn't fit on these bolts. So I had to get a different size wrench for those ones than I had. So that's one thing that bummed me out, because this was my like go-to everything tool, like quick grab. It mainly would fix everything on my skates, but now not quite. But that's okay. I usually keep my little zipper baggy guy in my bag anyway, so I can help the kiddos fix it. But anyway, as we go, we'll take off. I always have to remind myself, righty tighty, lefty loosey. So this part, you want to make sure you're not misplacing things. I like to keep my skate in like the toe stop pointing one way the whole time. And then I will take everything from the skate and put it like on the left side of the table, and everything from this truck onto the right side of the table, because I notoriously mix things up. It's not a huge issue, again, if your trucks are on the same angle, but some plates are set up to where there's like, I think I think it's like a 10% difference in the angle. Don't quote me though, because I don't have those. But anyway, so as you take them apart, you have the nut, which is just like all the others. It's a little bigger. So if you look in the top, you can see on the top it has like the rubbery stuff. So don't put that in acetone. This is your little cushion retainer. I think that's what it's called. It holds it in like a little sandwich. So if you look on this side, you have the bolt, and then this metal piece here is the top retainer. And then this is your cushion. So these are just the factory cushions that came with Vicious's skates. They're pretty hard. I think they're super hard, but I don't really invest too much in my junior kids skates because they either break them or they grow out of them really quickly. So yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Some people like to get really technical on all their things. With my kids, I don't really yet. When they're older, I will. However, with that being said, your cushions can help you quite a bit depending on what you have. So there's lots of different softnesses or hardnesses with them. These, again, there's your outer, like the bottom retainer. But you have two here, and these factory ones are the same on both sides, the top and the bottom. So you don't really have to remember if they go on the top or on the bottom. With mine, they have, like the top one is smaller and it's curved like this. And then it also has like a little area that sits into the retainer, because the retainers look a little different on these. Anywho, so this will wiggle right out along with all the other stuff. This is your truck. So it's metal. You have your axle, which is going through it. And then this is your pivot point, I guess. Oh. And then this is your kingpin here. So while you have it all undone, you can clean that kingpin off. You can clean the inside part where your cushions sit. I find that a lot of that track dust, even though it seems sandwiched in there really tight, it still gets inside. So you just clean right in here. You'll see there's like a little rim and a bunch of stuff will get stuck up in there. So just wash that off. This is also, at least on these trucks, they're all metal. I don't think there are any that are made out of a plastic, but never know. But the metal is fine to be cleaned with the acetone or any other kind of like metal cleaner you have. So let's see, we'll move on. The next part you can check while you have your trucks off is your pivot cup. So your pivot cup sits inside the truck, right in here. So what happens is your truck goes on like this, and your pivot point sits inside a cushiony little cup. On my plates, this cup is just plastic. On these Powerdyne plates, it's a rubber one. So I haven't busted my plastic ones yet in the like few months that I was using them, but I wasn't using them as hard as I did when I was skating on a home team, where I was skating really, really hard, like 5 nights a week. So what I would do is, so because I'm a blocker mainly, and when you plow, and people are talking about using your edges, so when you plow, your foot turns like this and you push. So it's your inside kind of wheels. All 4 of them are touching and making contact with the ground, but your feet turn like this in your boot, and it makes your trucks turn. So if you are putting a lot of pressure like that onto your trucks, what's happening is your truck is maneuvering. Let's see if I can show you. It's doing this sort of business, and it's using your cushions that are here, these guys. It compresses on your cushions and pivots, that's why they call it a pivot cup, in the pivot cup. So this little guy just moves like that. So this pivot cup, if you are a blocker that uses your plow stop really heavily and people are pushing on you and there's lots of pressure, this pivot cup will bust. Like the rubber ones will be misshapen. So if you look at it, Vicious's are good, but what will happen is, I think you can see it, this the rubber around here will start to just look squeezed. So it's flat like this, and it'll start to like pucker out like that. That's when you usually know you need a new one. The pivot cups on these guys, let's see if you can see down in here, are plastic. It's that little white guy. When I took them all apart to put, this is a slider block. I can't quite use them yet, but I'm trying. But when I had to put this on, I had to take the trucks all off because it has this little metal piece that attaches to the trucks. But anyway, my pivot cups just fell out super easily. And I'm not used to that because my old wheels have this rubber, and like you can see, they're not coming out. So be careful and watch your pivot cups. Anyway, check that, make sure it's all good. Hers are fine. I don't see any deformities happening. The rubber's not cracked. You don't see any discoloring. So that's another thing with your cushions. So like I said, these cushions are hard. The reasons for softer and harder cushions is it allows you to control your the like angle that you're making your truck go in. I'm sorry, everyone, can't think of the words. But anyway, so what it does is as your truck turns, Vicious's are pretty tight. Let me loosen them on this side so I can kind of show you. Oh wait, there we go. Okay, so now that they're loose, you can see when I bend it, it compresses on this side and releases on this side, and vice versa when you bend it the other way. But as you can see, these are super loosened to where like that's not on correctly. So what that means is if you want your truck to move like this, but it's not tightened enough to where like that's not compressing your cushions, that's just wiggling, right? So if you want it looser, more squishy, you need softer ones. If you are tightening the heck out of them and they're still too wobbly while you're skating, then you need to get harder ones. There she goes. These are hers. Anyway, You can say hi. She's gonna come say hi.
Hi.
This is Vicious Donut.
I'm building a fort with my sister.
Fort building 101. Anyway,
Good to see you, kiddo. It's Catherine.
what?
Oh, I said good to see you, kiddo. It's Catherine.
Hi.
Hi.
You can't see her, but she can see you. Anyway, she's got her RCR unicorn stuff on. Anyway, so yeah, so the cushions, like I was saying, mine are softer because I like a lot of play. So what I'm talking about is when you are skating and you're turning or doing your edge work, transitioning, there's lots of reasons that you want your trucks to move like this. So when we're going around the apex, it's usually a really tight turn. It's not like most skating rinks have a bigger area to skate. So it's not a hard turn. So you don't really need it to be super soft to where you can do a lot of like agility sort of movements using them. I'm explaining this. Anyway, so having them softer for me helps me use less effort with my body because my equipment is doing it for me. Did that make sense? So mine are squishy and soft. So I get lots of play with them being like tightened down. So if you want them, again, if it's too squishy, too crazy, and they're tightened like as much as they'll go, just get harder ones. They're like, I think $4 or something like that at the skate shops and stuff like that. Anyway, so once you have all that kind of cleaned up on your skate, you can either do them one at a time if you're worried about mixing yours up. Then when you're putting them back together, you're just going to copy the other side if you didn't do both of them all at once. Otherwise, you can take a picture of it. Some people will do that if they're not super familiar with how they go back together, or like I did that with these ones because they were new when I first took them apart, just to reference it, because I'm usually that person that like dives right in, takes everything apart, and then I go, oh, wait a minute, how does it go back together? So yeah, take a picture if you're like me. Your cushions, again, these can be cleaned off just like your wheels, but I wouldn't use any chemicals on them. And then if your cushions are misshapen, so if you see these are just a regular old cylinder shape. If the sides start to like round like this, then you need new ones. They'll oftentimes turn different colors. So like these, there they are. The red ones, they're kind of clear. So you'll see like color differentiations in them when they start to get old. These ones, if you see, it's kind of got like that on it. It almost looks like a color, like a different, how I can't think of the word. Gosh, the color's messed up. But that's because of the retainer guy. So you can clean these too. What if you can see in that retainer, that like dirt stuff? That's what's getting on this cushion. Because this cushion's new, so it's nice and shiny still, plastic, and it's not cracking or brittle. My really, really old skates, I took them to the Caribbean when I was younger, and the difference in like the humidity and the temperature did a number on my skates. Let's just put it that way. I ended up having to replace some of the parts when I got back into the States, just because, and like I think also being in an airplane maybe could have done it too. I don't know. All those factors. Oh, that sounds wonderful. So to put them back together, you want to get your little cushion retainer back onto the cushion. And then as you see this side, we're going to put retainer down onto the kingpin. Another thing you can look while the stuff's off of your kingpin is make sure it's not bent. Make sure the threading on it is still intact. Sometimes people bend these and it can really mess up a lot of how your skate works. So check them. These look fine. And when I say bent, I mean like really bent or like misshapen. Because again, they do sit on an angle. So, all right. Then if your pivot cap came out, or if you were able to get it out, these rubbery ones are harder to get out, so I don't mess with them. But make sure it's there before you put your truck back on. And then you're going to put it inside the little pivot cup area. And then it's going to sit right on top of that cushion. Just like that. And then you're going to take your other cushion with the retainer on the top this time, just like this side. And it's going to go right on top of there. And then wiggle it around and you'll get it to all kind of click right into place. So it looks like that. This way you can kind of see how when it turns, how the mechanics of your cushions kind of work while they're not tightened. And then as you tighten it, instead of the play being like wiggly, the play is inside your cushions here. So it's pressing on one side of the cushions and then it presses on another side. So grab your bolt. I don't know what sitting inside my wrench. Okay. And you're gonna put it back on. The part about this is I usually will, my goodness, put like Vicious's, I will tighten all the way to the cushion and then a tiny bit more. And then I make her put them on and wear them because you really can't tell unless you really, really know your skates really well. And you can grab them and maneuver them and be like, oh, okay, that feels good, where that feel that you're used to. But your hands will never put as much pressure as the weight of your body will. So doing it with your hands, you may be like, right on, that's perfect. And then you're gonna put them on and then the weight of your body will press that cushion down so hard that your foot will just go wah, off to one way. So if you find that when you put your skates back together and you're trying to skate and they're veering off the wrong way or one's coming in, similarly to where like when you're driving your car, you can like let go of the wheel and it'll take you another way. I guess that's for those of us that drive. Sorry, juniors. But anywho, that's how you know they're too loose. And you want to be careful when you are a beginner skater or you're not as used to having a lot of play, because it relies on your ankle to kind of keep you stable and controlling the bend of your skates. So essentially, if they're loose enough, if you lean, you're going to start to turn. So a lot of kids will come to me during practice and they'll say, Matt, I am trying to speed skate and do my crossovers in the apex, right? And they are trying to do the pattern. But as they come out of the turn, they are drifting way out and they can't control that tight turn. The first thing I usually check are their trucks. That means loosen them a tiny bit, because as you lean, like mine are super loose. So if I lean on them just a tiny bit, my whole foot will start to go the opposite way. So play with them as you get comfortable with it being loose. Loosen it a little more. You want to gradually get to that point where it's like really loose, because you always want to control it. Just like when I talk about toe stops with the kids, and they always ask me, they'll say, well, someone said they need to be really close to the ground. Someone says they need to be like halfway, but I like them really up high. And I usually tell kids that it's your preference. Listen to your coaches. They usually have great information, but adapt what works for your body. And for me, I like to use my toe stops a lot. Now I like them down lower. However, when I first started skating derby style stuff, it wasn't, I didn't use toe stops. So I was, a little background real quick. I grew up a rink rat, which is a term for kids that just live at a rink, basically. It's not meant to be mean. But yeah, I like lived at a rink when I was little. That's all we did. When I was in California, my mom took us out to the pier and all that fun stuff. Then my first job was working at a skating rink. But I did a lot of speed skating and like jam skating and just session skating. So toe stops get in the way. And I will tell you, I hated these big giant things, or the gumballs. I didn't like them because they were huge. What I used to use is a jam plug. So that's what this little guy is. As you can see, it's a big difference. So yeah, it took me a lot to get used to having this big giant thing in front of my wheels. I like to drag my toes and do dancing maneuvers and fancy spins that you really can't do with these things here. But for derby, they're great. So yeah, if you see, mine aren't very low. Even now, mine are pretty high. I like them, I guess, a midway. Reason being for derby is when you go up on your toe stop, you'll see you get this angle. A lot of people, see, I've got 4 fingers here. Some people say they only like 3 fingers width from the table is what I'm talking about, like that. 3 to 2, it all depends on your preference. And the argument for them being lower is that you have less energy to expend to do this while you're stopping. And that makes sense. I totally agree with it. Scientifically, it's right. However, if you're not comfortable with it, it doesn't work for you, raise them up, do what works for you, what's safe for your body. And then gradually work them down, right? That's what I had to do. Even though mine aren't even that low. Anyway. But yeah, these little dance plugs, they make it to where you don't ruin the rink. So if you want to try practicing without toe stops at the rink when it's, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
Okay.
you're okay. I was just telling everyone you're over time, but I'm going to like totally change the name of this tutorial to skate cleaning walkthrough options for your trucks. Like, I love everything that you're going over. So I say keep going.
I talk a lot. I just
Join
go.
the club. I mean, you already did. You already did join the club of us that talk a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm all blushing and red. So yeah. Dance plugs are really nice. You must wear them at a rink because you'll scuff up their floor because all derby people rely on their toe stops. Thanks for joining. I'm sorry we went longer. So yeah. Anywho, we'll go on. So after you return everything back onto your trucks, tighten them down to where they're not wiggling like this one. As you can see, there's still a ways to tighten. And then yeah, once you get it fit snug, you want to put them on once the wheels are on and all that. And I like to go up on my toe stop like this and then move my foot like this. And you're gonna see I don't think I can do it without, there you go. You can see it moving. The wheels are what I look at because those are the things that shift. There it goes. See that shift? That's it moving. See it? Woo, right there. Away from my toe stop even. It makes it really, yeah. So that's how you get up and test it. If it's wiggling, and then skate in them. That is the best way to know. Sometimes you'll tighten the trucks at different tightnesses. I used to always do that, and it's just about playing around with it. That's why I really like these ones that are like clicking. They click every time. It does like a, gosh, I want to say like an 1/8 of a turn. That's what it looks like anyway. But yeah, so it's really nice way to remember or keep track of like how tight you're getting them. With these ones on Vicious's skates, she doesn't have that nifty little lock system. So I will normally tighten them, wiggle it. If it doesn't wiggle by hand, I'll be like, good. Then once the skates are on, that's when I have her tell me. So it's, you skate in them. Are your feet doing funny things? Or can you not do what you could do before? Because if they're too tight, they're not going to turn. When you add that little bit of pressure, they won't go. So that's how you fill that play. All right, so you do that with both sides. I'm not going to take trucks off. I don't like plates. I'm not going to take the plates off. I don't like messing with my plates. Some people can't take their plates off. I think they're bonds. I think that they're like attached to the boot or something, or like glued on. I don't know. I've never had bonds before, but people have talked to me about them. Anywho, I don't like messing with them. What I suggest, I've only built a pair of skates once, and I was like 15 years old. So I don't totally remember how to do it. So I don't even build my own skates. These beautiful, beautiful masterpieces I got from Five Stride, and OMG put them together, and they're great. I'd rather have someone who is doing it all the time and, you know, isn't going to mess them up. Because you can mess them up pretty badly. So anyway, yeah. So you get your trucks back on. Now we're going to look at our bearings again. So if you had your bearings, again, I didn't clean mine because then it would have taken like 3 hours because I would be talking and cleaning at the same time, and it would have been crazy. So, as you are, if you have them in a Tupperware, you're gonna see, even in this, it's like a clear, or not clear, like a white semi-see-through. So when you put stuff in it, you can see the liquid, and you can see it changing colors. Oh, and I didn't mention, you just need enough of acetone to cover the bearings if they're in a Tupperware. And they really only need to sit for like 5 minutes or so. If they're really, 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 really dirty, you can do longer. I'm usually too impatient to do it longer. Anyhow, so if they're in here, I usually fill up to like the words on this. It's usually like about a fourth of a cup of acetone or so, just because I shake it up. If it's in the Tupperware, like I said, just have it just above the bearings so you don't waste your acetone. Anyway, you're gonna see the water, or the acetone is gonna be dirty. So you can either take the acetone out if it's like really, really, really dirty and they're still really, really, really dirty, and do it again. Or if they're done, I usually take them out, and this is where I have like a paper towel down on the table, or a washcloth, whatever. And I will dump them out, and I think you can see this. I lay them all out like this. And I will kind of hit them to try to get the liquid out. The nice thing about acetone is it evaporates. Another thing I will do is I will hold the inner race, which is that inside metal piece, like this, and spin it. And that, so the air gets in there and the ball bearings start to all move around again. Yeah, hers are kind of, I didn't clean them. You can hear that they're noisy. That is how you know they're dirty. Like if your kid's skating, or you are skating around and you just sound like all over the place, it's usually clean your bearings. Anyway, so hit them, spin them. If you have an air compressor, that also works so nice. You just spray the air compressor in there and it'll spin the bearings around really, really fast and it'll dry them. So that's awesome. So once they're all dry, you're gonna take your shields that are nice and clean now. And what you're gonna do is, oh, let me show you. So one side of the shield has the metal exposed, and then one side has like this plastic coating, which, if you look, I don't know if you guys can see it this close, but on the inside and the outside, that like rubbery plastic goes around to create a seal. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your shield and you're going to just lay it on top like that. Let's see if I can get it, and just push it gently. And I don't know if you guys heard that snap, but it popped right back in, just like that. If you lose these guys, again, they're not, it's not gonna break your bearing, but the longevity of your bearing probably wouldn't be the longest, because stuff will get in there easier. Some people have the metal backing that doesn't come out and one shield. I put the shield part on the outside of the wheel, so, or like the exposed part, because you have two bearings. So like this, if this was the metal, I would put the metal part in and have the shield part shown, and the same with the back side. So yeah, once you have them all dry and shields back in, you can use your hands or the table. Oh, my cat just knocked. Sorry, guys. Anyway, so you can lay it down on the table, and then the flat side of your wheel, not the inside of the hub part that like goes in, the concave part. You want the inner part that goes in the inner part of your skate. Do that and push it down, and you'll see that it doesn't always go. You have like a little bit left here, but that's pretty easy. You can use your fingers and press. I always keep my fingers on that metal, the race, the outer race. If you push in on the shield, it will compress on your bearings and can bend the shield so it doesn't allow your bearings to spin freely. It can break the retainer inside that holds your ball bearings, which breaks the bearing, like your bearing's broken. No going back after that. Or you can bend it to where the outer race and the inner race are like wonky, and they won't spin correctly. So if you look, so this outer race, the inner race is that inner metal part, and this is the outer metal part. So it sits in here, and you want them to be parallel, like sitting in each other. Can't do it with my hands. I think you guys get it. Anywho, be gentle is all I'm saying, and press on only the metal. If you have a bearing, these guys, I don't find are super useful with putting them back in. Sometimes you can press them. The reason why I don't like using this, for instance, is because it only makes contact with that inner race, that middle of the middle metal to our bearing. And if you could see, if I'm pushing on this and it just pushes the inside part, it's going to, the inside part is going to move like this, where the outside race is going to stay. So you're going to be essentially bending it, right? So that's why I don't use this. I believe this is just a cooler outer thing. My technical wording. So yeah. Another thing, so for the inside part, you can try to put it in with your fingers. Sometimes it's hard because they'll go in crooked. So what I do is I will put the flat side of your wheel down on the tabletop, and I will take my nifty difty power dime tool, or any kind of was this a bolt, right? Cody, what are these called? That has like the socket. Oh, it's a socket, right? Thanks. Anyway, any socket style thing, because it's circular, I like to use the bigger end as opposed to the smaller end for the same reasons we just talked about. So you're going to set it in here, and then you can kind of lightly wiggle it around and press it in. I'm not going to do that just because I don't like doing it that way. That's why I have this. So I told you guys about the front part here that has the hook that pulls your bearings out as you use this. Well, there's another piece here that opens up like so, and you stick the wheel on with the bearings in there with it, and this part hooks into this piece like that. And then when you do push the lever, this piece moves in and compresses it all together. Ta-da! So, basically my lesson today is invest in one of these. I don't, 5 Stride probably sells them. Email them, ask them. But I got this again off Amazon for, I think it was like $19.99. Not expensive. They can get expensive.
How often do you recommend that people who skate weekly, right? Say most people in our league skate at least twice a week. How often do you think that they should do the full clean out that you've described?
They're skating in the hangar.
Usually in real
No,
life.
now we're not, but because outside it's way dirtier. The hangar can be dirty. I mean, it's not like airtight. We don't have airflow going. I mean, we can with the doors, but we've got a lot of dirt, dust, and other skin and stuff. But I would do a full cleaning if you are a home team skater and you need your equipment to function all the time really well. I would probably do it like every other month if you see that they're getting really dirty, you know. It depends. If the people that are in charge of cleaning the hangar that month did a really good job sweeping and stuff like that, then we don't have a lot of debris. But I would do it if, say, junior skaters or someone who like is in wreckers that is not really relying on high performance all the time, you could probably get away with like twice a year, right? That being said, check them. Some people's stuff attracts dirt more than others. Like I said, I don't use any bearing lube or like toe stop. This has toe stop cream on it because I didn't put it together. I don't mind that they did that in the shop. It's totally cool, not a big deal to me. I'm not one of those people that like super cares, but if I can zoom up on this toe stop, you guys see all that? All that is like, I don't even want to touch it. It's gross, right? And that's what the cream does. So yeah, if you notice that's what your skates do, clean them. Yeah, did that answer that enough? I'm
Totally did. Thank you so much, Matt. Very helpful.
Yeah.
And we have a bunch of outdoor wheels put on skates ready to pick up at the hangar. So I'm going to suggest that people that do that kindly clean them up before they return them to us using your tutorial. So this is awesome timing.
Yeah. One thing really quick I'll say, putting your wheels back on before we end, because we are pretty much done, is when you tighten your bolts down, you're going to want to tighten them down until they won't go by hand, is what I like to do. And then when you use your tool, get it down to where it's touching, but then you need to try to spin your wheel. This wheel's not spinning, so it's too tight. You loosen it a little bit. Now it's spinning and it's not wiggling. My biggest thing that I teach the kids when they're putting their own, there we go. So here, well, you might even not be able to see it, but it's wiggling up and down. You don't want that. So you're gonna mess with it. You're gonna tighten, you're gonna check, you're gonna spin, you're gonna wiggle. And if it spins freely, but doesn't wiggle up and down, then it's perfect.
Awesome.
But that was the last thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. Thanks for taking the time to do this twice. Super appreciated.
I hope it made a lot of sense.
It did.
Online, so.
It did. I've never been confident to take my skates apart. I'm just a recreational skater myself at the rink, and I've never been confident. So I'm going to give it a try.
Awesome. Well, and people can message me on Facebook or whatever. Email me if you have questions. I love to help. So yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Have a great evening with your family.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.